and welcome to Possibilities, the show where we give people living with a variety of different abilities and their loved ones a space to share their lives with the world. Thank you for joining us today, and here's your host, Danny Steeves.
Thank you, Randy, and welcome to today's episode of Possibilities. Today we're going to talk about accessible media because I believe there's a huge gap in the accessible media spectrum, and you may be thinking, Danny, what is accessible media? Well, accessible media is really anything that that um that goes along with media, but it has to do with it can be adapted to people with disabilities. Now, there's a college in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, which has a program all about accessible media, and you may recall those of you who've been following me on YouTube for a while. You may recall me sitting down and talking to Gavin Quick. Gavin was a graduate of this program. Now, joining me today is Jennifer Jahnke. She's the teacher of the accessible media program at Mohawk College, and she's gonna be popping in and telling me all about the accessible media, a little bit about how we can get more engagement of people with disabilities in the media and all kinds of stuff related to media and disabilities. So, should be an interesting conversation coming up here with Jennifer, and I'll be back in a second here with Jennifer. So stay tuned. And welcome back to Possibilities. Joining me now is the professor of the Accessible Media Program at Mohawk College, Jennifer Jahnke. Welcome to Possibilities, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Danny. I appreciate you having me on the show.
My pleasure. So I thought we might start off by first telling me what Mohawk College Accessible Media Program is all about.
For sure. So, the Accessible Media Production Graduate Certificate Program is an 8-month executive delivery program that supports individuals who are usually working in their respective fields, but want to gain more knowledge about accessibility. So we've had students in the medical field, in graphic designs, in computer technology, in communications, in television broadcasting, and they want to advance their skills to learn how they can do their job or their career with more of an accessibility focus. And so the students go through an 8-month program where they learn everything from how to create documents that are accessible, how to caption, how to write description, how to write in plain and inclusive language. They learn about assistive technologies and about how to create content so that it's accessible on the web. So that's PDFs, HTML, social media, and they pull it all together by working with an industry partner for their Capstone project.
Okay, I want to hear more about those in a minute here, but first of all, how did this go? How did Mohawk College first get into the accessible media program in the first place?
That's a great question. So, in the journalism program, it's our 3-year journalism program. We got awarded a grant through the Broadcast Accessibility Fund to create a course in the second year of the program for students to learn how to create accessible content. And so I put together a 1-semester, 14-week course where 3 hours a week, we were talking about accessibility. And we're just kind of touching on each of the subjects. It was really just the tip of the iceberg. But the program, the course got so much attention and so many people were asking if they could take that course. And because we were just really touching on the topics, we weren't able to dive deep into some of the subjects. And this is a really growing field. And so from there, we thought, well, maybe this is a program that people would like to attend as a certificate. And so we developed the graduate certificate program out of it.
And how long has that program been running now?
So the journalism program has been, I think it's going into its 6th year, and we are just entering our 5th cohort this September for the graduate certificate program. So we're just graduating our 4th cohort this June.
Okay, that would make sense why I attended the accessible media workshop a few weeks ago. More on that in a minute here, but I'm curious on on your on your background. Like, did you did this program really come 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 from you, or where did that come from?
Yeah, so I've been at the college for almost 11 years now. And one of
Yeah.
the opportunities I was in accessible learning services, supporting students with academic accommodations.
Yeah.
But then I had the opportunity to take on the AODA, or the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act project manager position, to support the college to ensure that they were meeting the legislation requirements. And in that position, I recognized that there was no training for individuals to learn how to meet the legislative requirements. So when I had the opportunity to develop the course for the journalism program, I jumped at the chance. And it's just been a really great journey in order to see the graduates of our program go on to some really impressive positions in supporting accessibility and moving the agenda forward and reducing barriers.
what what kind of barriers have you seen reduced from the graduates in your program?
So our program really focuses on information and communication technologies. And so really looking at creating accessible content, making websites accessible. One of our students just worked with the Hamilton Street Rail, or Hamilton HSR, for their mobile app to make sure that individuals can access the content on a mobile device
Yeah.
so that they can use the transportation, the buses. So that's a really great opportunities to ensure that those
Yeah.
barriers are removed.
Yeah. More, I'm sure I'm sure we'll get into more of this later in the show, but first of all, what has been your biggest surprise working on this program for the last little bit?
Oh, my biggest surprise. You know what? It's not really a surprise. I think it's more of a surprise for the students, is just how welcoming and supportive the accessibility community is. I've always known that the disability community, the accessibility community are such great people, but I think the students are always surprised at how willing people are to talk and help and support them through their learning process. We
Yeah.
do end user testing in our program, where we work with members of the disability community to ensure that the products that we're creating to be accessible are fully accessible. And the students, I think that's their biggest joy from the whole program, is being able to sit down and chat with and hear from members of the disability community and those that'll benefit from the accessibility of the products.
Um, yeah, absolutely, because I find me being in the space that I am, I don't really see a lot of people doing a lot for accessibility. So I think we do need more. So this program is absolutely crucial. Um, but I wonder, what have there been any negative feedback since you started, or has it all been positive feedback from the community? You're on mute, by the way.
I think so. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I think some of the I don't know if I'd say it's negative feedback, but I think it's just frustration from the disability community at how slow it is to see change for accessibility.
Yeah.
That we have the legislation in place, but organizations aren't responding or meeting their legislative requirements. And I truly think that everybody wants to, they just don't know how to, or they're not aware that they have to. And so I think people get frustrated with how long it takes to get things accomplished. And honestly, if I had my way, we wouldn't even have this graduate certificate program. Accessibility would be integrated into the programs right from the beginning. So we're teaching students how to caption after they've come out of their programs, but captioning should be part of all television broadcasting programs. It should maybe even be introduced in high school when students start to learn to make videos. When they start to develop websites, they should be learning to make them accessible right from the beginning.
That is an excellent point. Why don't you think that is the case? And how can we make that change?
I'm a member of the accessibility committee for post-secondary education standards development committee. So we're looking at with our K to 12 colleagues, looking at creating an additional standard under the AODA. And we've had this conversation a number of times about how do we change systemic barriers in the education system to ensure that accessibility is considered as part of the framework and rather than an afterthought. And education is really the way that we feel is the best way to approach it. So educating faculty, educating teachers, educating administrators and support staff on the need for accessibility. Our population has over 22 million people in Canada that identify as having a disability. And as our population ages, disability numbers grow. And so at one point in time, we're all going to benefit from an accessible or an inclusive design. And so we're really trying to promote the importance of accessibility for everybody and really looking at usability, making everything usable for everybody.
Getting away from the media for a bit, because I can tell you're passionate about accessibility in general. So I want to ask you this: why is accessibility such a taboo topic, if you will? Why isn't it acknowledged as soon? Why is people so afraid to adapt to the accessibility standards?
Oh, that's a good question, Danny. I think that for a lot of people, they don't see how accessibility would benefit them. They think it's somebody else's problem. And, I've heard David Onley spoke one time about the accessibility of restaurants, and the restaurateur had said, well, we don't get many people with wheelchairs in here. It's like, well, of course you don't, because you're not accessible.
Yeah.
And until they realize the financial benefits of being accessible, that business case for why accessibility would benefit them, what their return on their investment is, or how it would how that could have a positive impact both financially and culturally on that organization, I think it's very hard to change that mindset. It's very refreshing to see organizations like Microsoft and Apple and Google really put accessibility to the forefront and make it embedded within their products rather than being an afterthought or an add-on. Microsoft has really taken a proactive lead. They just had their accessibility summit, and rather than the accessibility checker being something that you have to go and find, it's now being moved to right beside the spell check, right? Like it's becoming much more prominent. And I think that it takes larger organizations to lead the way. I mean, Apple has embedded voiceover and Siri into their products, and they just come with their products, which is fantastic. You don't have to go out and buy something else. And I think that mentality of really these big organizations showing that this builds community, this builds profits, this is the right thing to do, hopefully will have a larger impact culturally in reducing the stigma and the need for accessibility as an afterthought, but about accessibility as a baked in part of their product. And hopefully organizations will start to see that and start doing that within their own business as well.
So I'm gonna get back to the program shortly, but tell me a bit more about Jennifer herself. Like, how did you get involved in accessibility in the first place? And I think you touched on it briefly, but tell me a bit more.
Sure, yeah. So I actually started off my education in computer science and math, and I didn't feel it was a good fit for me. And at the time, I was taking sign language classes. So I really pivoted and I went to Sheridan College to become a sign language interpreter. Turns out I really wasn't very good at it. So um, I found this really niche area where I could combine my love of technology and computers with communication, and I became a speech therapist in the field of augmentative and alternative communication, and working to support individuals to improve their communication. So that was really the area I pursued, and then I went on and I got my degree from California State University Northridge, or CSUN. And CSUN is one of the largest, well, they hold the largest assistive technology conference. And there I really pursued my love of assistive technology. And so I went on to get my master's degree, and I had worked in the field of speech therapy for a number of years, predominantly with assistive technology. And that's how I came to Mohawk to support students at the college who had communication disabilities, like who were deaf or blind or who used assistive technology, to ensure that they were getting proper academic accommodations.
And again, what I sound like a broken record, but what, when you first got to Mohawk, what was your biggest surprise when you got there? Did you find that they were receptive to people with disabilities or not?
I would say that I've seen a huge shift in the last decade. I think that the college and colleges in general have really embraced accessibility, and Mohawk is very proactive. They have in our Center for Teaching and Learning, they have a Universal Design for Learning curriculum consultant, and Universal Design for Learning is being embraced. And that's looking at how do we reduce the need for academic accommodations to ensure that all students are accommodated. And I think that's been a really positive move, and I'm really pleased with overall accessibility. I think initially people thought that in order to accommodate somebody, they had to make big changes. And with Universal Design for Learning, it's a really great approach where, if one student benefits from additional time on a test, maybe all students could benefit from some additional time. If a few students need their notes in advance, well, let's make them available to everybody. And so it's really about, that shift in our mindset that we can support learning, really take it more to humanizing how we're teaching.
Absolutely. Okay. Tell me a bit more about the program in the Cornerstone Project. Like what is that all about?
Yeah, so in the program, each student does a capstone project. And the capstone project runs throughout the full 8 months. In the first few weeks, the students select an industry partner. So that could be somebody that they already work for. So their employer could be their industry partner, or it may be somebody that's approached the program. So an industry that is looking for support or help, or we seek out employers depending on the student's area of interest. And then together with their industry partner, they identify an accessibility problem. So that might be a mobile app, it might be their website, it might be their documents, it might be training. So there's lots of different areas that the organization might like the student to focus on. And then throughout the whole program, each course, and we run a sequential delivery. That means the students only take one course at a time. And so in each of their classes, an assignment is aligned with their capstone project. So for
Yeah.
example, their first course is disability legislation. And one of the assignments they have to do is a legislative overview and business case for their industry partner. So they have to see what legislation their industry partner is required to meet, looking at the AODA, maybe the Accessible Canada Act, maybe going more international. And then they have to build a business case. So why should this organization become accessible? What's in it for them? And then each of the following courses have an assignment that's aligned to their industry partner. So by the time they get to their second semester, they've done all of their evidence-based research, and then they can start doing their applied research. And this is where they start applying their knowledge. So they draft a solution to address that problem, and then put together a solution and an accessible media project at the end
Yeah.
to showcase their skills.
Yeah. And as as a teacher, where in the program, where have you seen the biggest shift? Like, is it at the middle or is it at the end of the program? Like, where has the student really said, aha, this is a big problem that I never knew before?
I think there's a few areas where I've seen that with students. A lot of students that come into the program, they have an idea in their head of what they think accessibility is. And then as they go through the program, they're like, oh, there's a lot more to this than I thought there was. I know
Yeah.
that when they get to the inclusive writing course and we talk about writing for plain language, that usually surprises students and they see the bigger impact there. But by the time they get to assistive technologies and they look at how people are accessing and engaging online with their assistive technologies, that's another real eye opener for them of not only the challenges and the barriers that are in the way of people, but how easy it is to avoid those barriers and challenges. But I think the biggest impact for the students and their real aha moment is when they do their end user testing, when they get to sit down and work with members of the disability community and hear their voice and see their challenges. I think that's really one of the biggest moments. And then when they pull it all together for their capstone showcase, they see the culmination of all of their work and their hard efforts, and it all kind of comes together. So I always say, you have to trust us on this journey. We'll get you where you need to be. But until they get to pull it all together and then they go, now I get it, because
Yeah.
they get to see all of the impact.
Absolutely. And maybe I'll tell you a bit more about this when we're done with the show, if you have a minute. But I'm part of accessibility. Uh, we work with accessibility a lot and patient research with McMaster University, and I'm shocked by the amount of research that they do because I really don't think it's necessary because if you really want to know something about a disability, you just need to spend time with someone with a disability. You don't have to do a bunch of research first. You just have to spend time with someone with disabilities and then go from there. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think inclusive design and the importance of co-design and having people with disabilities involved and engaged in the research aspect is so important to having a full understanding. Many of our students in the program, I would say probably 70 to 80% of our students identify as having a disability, and having their voice and having their participation. And we seek out members of the disability community. So in all aspects of our applied research, we have that perspective. And I think that's invaluable.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a certain area in the world where you would like to see more accessibility or accessible media get more recognition or more uh more where it's not so taboo again?
Yeah, I think that COVID has really brought to light that online content and access to the internet is not just a want, but a need. And the need for that to be accessible to everyone is absolutely a priority that we need to make. An area that I think hasn't gotten the proper attention, but I'm pleased to see the Accessible Canada Act has made it a priority, is in writing for plain language. I think that a lot of the information, even if you can access it, a large percentage of our population might not understand what's being shared. And that's one area that the AODA doesn't have a standard on yet. But the Accessible Canada Act, which came into effect June 2019, is making one of their first standards and their first priorities. So that's definitely an area that I would like to see be more developed.
Yeah. Like how, like I I hate to ask you the same question over and over, but how can we get there so people out in the community isn't like, huh? Why do we need accessible media or accessible anything like? Why do you think accessibility is so standoffish, if you will?
You know, when we look at the statistics, 1 in 5 people in Canada identify as having a disability. And as we age, those numbers are only going to grow. Accessibility is not about disability. Accessibility is about usability and making things more usable for everybody. For example, if you were to take your cell phone and go out and want to look at a website in the bright sunshine, if there isn't good color contrast on the web page, that's going to be very difficult for you to do. If you are, somebody who, is juggling multiple things like work and whatnot, you don't have a lot of time to sit down and really attend to the content. So having it being written in plain language and very clear and easy to read and comprehend makes your life so much easier. So having things being created properly is really not, about how do we serve, that 1 in 5 people, but it's how do we serve everybody? And accessibility is really about everybody. How many times do people use the automatic door pusher on a door because their hands are full, or use the closed captioning because they're in a quiet environment and can't have the audio playing, or they're in a loud environment and they can't hear the audio?
Yeah.
Accessibility benefits everybody.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't see it that way, do they?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm shocked by the amount of people that I run into and say, hey, you need to be more accessible, and they are like, why we don't cater to people with disabilities, so why would we become more accessible if we don't cater to people with disabilities? And I am like, excuse me? Like, honestly, like, it
That's
just,
awful, right?
yeah, yeah, so, anyway, Jennifer, I want to get your opinion on something, and I don't I don't know how familiar you are, but that is about accessibility on TV, and what I really want to get your opinion on is why do you think there are so many disability shows on TV right now, but they don't but they don't ha- but they don't hire people with disabilities to play those roles?
Yeah, I think that like that's a really good topic. And I talk to our students a lot about accurate representation
Yeah,
of disabilities.
yeah,
And it always brings up a really great conversation with the students. As I said, many of my students in the program are members of the disability community and identify as disabled individuals. And so we have a conversation about that need for accurate representation. And shows like Crip Camp and Speechless and a few others are doing a fantastic job of demonstrating accurate representation of the disability community and positive portrayals of individuals. And then other ones, and I don't remember the name of the CM movie, um, but they're receiving backlash because they're not demonstrating accurate representation. Could you find an actor that has autism that could accurately portray an autistic person? Yes, of course you could. And movies, I don't know the name of the movie again, I apologize, but I think it's Anne Hathaway plays a witch, and um, they
mm,
show body disfigurement to portray evil or
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
And is that a requirement? Like that's not a body positive, that's not accurate representation, that has nothing to do with personality or whatnot. And what's
and,
really great to see is that the disability community is fighting back, right? And people are saying this is not okay. And it's impacting their box offices, it's impacting they're getting a lot of negative press from it. And so I hope that continues. And I hope things like Crip Camp and Speechless and TV shows that show positive disability representation will be seen more of, and seen
yeah,
as an important and valuable um, broadcasting.
yeah. I I was I was watching like I was watching some episodes of Glee the other day, and I was like, I was, I know that show is over now, but I was like, why why the heck are they, why the heck are they making disabled characters uh, if they don't play, if they don't get a disability actor to play it. It just doesn't make sense. I think if you want to make shows about disabilities, you should get a disability actor to play them. And you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, like Artie in the wheelchair is not a wheelchair user.
No,
And, like it wouldn't have been hard to find a wheelchair user to play
no,
that
no.
role, but they did a nice job in casting. I can't remember her name. She's such a cutie. Amy. She's the cheerleader
Uh,
who has
Be-
Down syndrome.
Be-
Becky.
Becky. Yeah.
I think the actress is Amy. And they did a fantastic job of casting
Yeah.
her, right? Like it's a real dichotomy in their perception.
I actually met her a few years back in in person, and she's absolutely fantastic. Her name is Lauren, by the way.
That's it. It's Lauren. Yes. Thank
Yeah,
you. Lauren Potter, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just think the whole world would be a lot better if they would get to what they know, and if they want to do a disability show, fine, but hire someone with a disability to play those roles. You would get a lot more of an accurate portrayal. So, um, anyway, can you? We're going backwards here, but you keep bringing it up, so I want to address it. Can you explain what plain language is and how it's helpful?
Yeah. So plain language it's taking complex information and making it more readable for a wider audience. So taking, complex terminology, acronyms, and really breaking it down, and
Yeah.
not only using words that are easier to comprehend, but organizing it and structuring it in a way that is easy to grasp. So rather than big, long blocks of paragraphs, having lists or columns, having it organized with proper heading structure so that people can read it and consume it and find the information that they need in an easier, more readable manner.
Yeah. Um. And do again? Do you think that we're a long way off from that becoming normal, or are we almost there?
I think that as it becomes more well known and on people's radar, I think it's being used more. So the government is definitely a leader in that area, and some organizations have really embraced plain language. Other areas are still struggling a little bit with that, how to take complex information and make it consumable. But I think they're now seeing the benefits of that. So places like banks, insurance companies, they're really seeing the benefits of having information presented in a very clear, non jargon filled way. So yeah, so that it just makes it more successful for everybody. But it's a real skill and it's a challenge. And so learning how to write in plain language is definitely something that our graduates benefit from.
Okay. I don't want to forget to cover this topic. So I'll do that now. Can you explain to me what if someone is thinking of going into your program? What is the biggest thing that they should expect for you to teach them?
Oh, it's interesting because I just met with the outgoing cohort and I asked them, what are your takeaways from this program? And they all had something different to say. Everybody was taking away some information.
Yeah,
So, it really depends on the individual and what they're coming into the program with, like what their previous experience
yeah,
is and where they're taking it. So some of our students are like working full time, but their employer has sent them to the program and they're applying their skills at work. And that's really interesting to see. We had a student with the city of Woodstock who went through our program and is now making, her website and social media and documents accessible. What is their biggest takeaway? I think that I always say to the students, we start discussing disability, and obviously we're going to move to accessibility, but I really hope that we get to usability, that we want to make information and communication technologies usable for everybody, and that starts with building it right from the beginning and not having to go in and retrofit something. When we
yeah,
have to retrofit something, it's ugly, it's more expensive, and it
yeah,
takes time. But if we do it right from the beginning, one aspect of our program is an entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship course. And an intrapreneur is somebody that goes within an existing organization and supports them to be accessible right from the beginning. And being that change maker and that disruptor and having to change people's mindsets, I think is probably what maybe all of the students come away with, is that we've changed their mindset. We've changed how they look at disability and truly understand what usability is.
um, yeah, and um, I, I, I have spoke with one of your graduates on the program before because I was gonna have you on the show a few years ago, and you can make it unfortunately like you said, but I was fortunate enough to talk to one of your graduates, given questions, and she said that program was extremely helpful for her. If you wouldn't mind, what was your biggest takeaway from when she did the program?
You cut off at the last part there. What was my biggest takeaway from?
When she when Devin did the program?
It's funny because I'm actually working on a project with Devin right now. She is our technical lead for a grant that we're working on. And one of the things that Devin has indicated was, again, and I know I've touched on it, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, but it's in that
No.
that afterthought, that accessibility is an afterthought. Devin's a graduate of our television broadcasting program, and I know it always amazes her that she didn't learn any of these things in that 3-year program, that we're not teaching how to write for description or how to integrate description into our productions, how we're not captioning our content, how we're not showing disability representation. And all of it is then an afterthought. And so that's one of Devin's real strengths, is that she brings to her experiences in the production, media production now, is that she has that full skill set, that she can embed accessibility right from the very beginning. And that's what makes her a real asset to a project.
Yeah. And what have other than Devin, do you have one of your favorite students that you're like, wow, look, what they became because of this program? Would you be able to share that with me?
Danny, it's like my children. I can't pick a favorite. They're all my favorites. And if they watch this, I hope they felt that way. Oh, honestly, I'm not sure I could narrow it down. I could talk about all of them. Our program is quite small, so
Well, just name a few, and we'll go through them one by one for a few minutes.
okay, how about we highlight maybe some of the capstone projects this year, and I'll talk a little bit about a few of them. One of the students, Rachel Brown, did a fantastic job. Her industry partner was AMI, and she was looking at how do we ensure our described video, The Blind, is written with high quality. And through her research, she put together a social media campaign that is hashtag DV and me. And it's the Twitter handle DV Quality. And she did a really fantastic job of bringing to light the need for quality description. Where another student, Diana, was Zanin, was working with Lakeshore Media Services on writing for description and the importance of the language and terminology we use to ensure respectful and truthful language that represents the community it's speaking about. And she put together an amazing guide on how we write. Let's see. I mentioned Nick. He did the HSR mobile app. Kevin Wu did a fantastic project with Ubisoft on the importance and how we produce gaming for sightless players. So he put together a great resource.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on. All of the students are so amazing.
Well, I have, I don't know if I can announce this on air, but I have one of my partners who is joining your next cohort of graduates, because her employees asked her to take the accessible media program with you, so you'll get to meet her. Her name is Jessica Gaylord, and she's absolutely fantastic.
Nice. Well, I look forward to meeting Jessica.
Yeah, she's been absolutely fantastic on editing my videos and putting those together, and she's been working with accessible media a lot in her other work, so she's actually coming and joining you in the next cohort. So you'll have a mutual thing talkable already. So,
That's
there you
fantastic.
go. So, again, before we wrap up, um, if someone if someone is interested in taking the accessible media program, what, how do they go about it, and what is the top 5 things that you teach them?
So if they're interested in attending the program, I have 2 information sessions coming up. One is this Thursday, May 27th at 7 p.m. The second is June 22nd at noon. And they can find all of that information on our website at www.mohawkcollege.ca/390. 390 is our program code. The top 5 things that they learn in our program. Oh, they learn document accessibility, web and social media accessibility, writing for inclusion, captioning, description, and assistive technology. Let's go with those top 5 things. But there's so much more to it. And at any point in time, anybody is welcome to contact me at my email address, which is jennifer.jahnke, JAHNKE @mohawkcollege.ca.
Uh, great information. One more thing that I was gonna ask you about is, on the news when people are speaking a different language, but they have subtitles at the bottom. How hard would it be to put voiceover on top of that, and why don't you think the TV stations do that on a regular basis? I'm curious.
So it's always important that individuals hear the original speaker so that they understand the dialect, the culture, the nature of the show that's going on.
Yeah.
Subtitles are a little bit different than captioning. Subtitles are for translation of an alternative language, and they're for sighted viewers. If the show has audio description or described video, then the described video will read out the subtitles, because it's described video is for individuals who are blind or low vision. And so they need to read out the subtitles.
Yeah, but a lot of a lot of television studios do not do that automatically, and I think they should. So why don't you think they do that automatically?
I think there's a real difference in opinions over the importance of hearing it in the natural language.
Yeah.
And that was the way it was created. It was created in that natural language, and people want to see it in its original source. And so the subtitles don't take away from, because subtitles don't, and somebody reading the subtitles, they don't share the inflection or the passion or the tone or the quality of the original actor or speaker. And so hearing that in its native or original context is really important for a lot of audience members. Described video, it tries to convey some of that, but it still tries not to overshadow the original content. So that it's not my area of expertise by any means. And I think that that's probably a great discussion for some of the experts in that field.
Yeah, absolutely. What, what, what would your final question here, Jennifer? What would your message be to someone who's about to take the program, and what would your message be to someone who is shy about accessible media or accessibility in general?
I think you have two questions there, so I'm going to answer them
Yeah.
separately. The first one, what would I say to somebody that's shy about taking it or uncertain? I would say that accessibility touches every aspect of every field. It doesn't matter what your background is. Accessibility will have an impact in it, and that this is a really growing field. That we're at the cusp of so many different pieces of legislation coming into effect, and so this is a really growing field, both socially but economically as well. There is a lot of work in this field. To answer your second question, what would I say to somebody that is coming into the program? I would say that you're only going to get out of the program what you put into the program. The program is very difficult. It's a very intense program. We have it as an executive delivery because we anticipate that students are coming into the program as working professionals and are juggling multiple things in their lives. So each course is only 3 weeks, but that's a fairly quick 3-week turnaround. You have to stay on top of the work, and you're only going to get out of it what you put into it. So if you don't put much into it, you're not going to get much out of it. And each of the courses scaffold. Once you learn a concept, you then are expected to apply it. So if you don't learn it, you're not going to be able to move forward and apply that learning. So as soon as you learn how to create an accessible document, every document you submit after that has to be fully accessible. When you learn to how to close caption, there's going to be videos that you're expected to create that need to be captioned. So that's kind of my advice for students. And I asked the current graduates, what advice would you give students leaving, coming into this program? And that's very similar to what they had said.
Absolutely. One more. Sorry, my audience. I have one more question, and then we'll end the show here. Is there a certain area of media where you think accessibility needs more attention?
I mean, I'm completely biased. So when I say this, understand that's my frame of view. But I think our education system, I think COVID has really shone a spotlight on the barriers for students to access content at home, and that teachers aren't prepared to deliver accessible online content in a way that meets all students' needs. And so I definitely think education is an area that needs a lot more attention in accessibility. And I'm hopeful that when the education standards comes out, it's expected to come out soon for review, that people give their input, give their feedback, and give it the attention it needs, because education is, the cornerstone of success in our economy. And the more well-educated our students are, I think the more successful our overall country will be. And so I know I'm biased as an educator, but I think education is an area we need to put a lot more emphasis on.
Do you have any final words before we that you feel that you want to let people know about?
Yeah, you know what? I think that even if you're just interested in learning more about accessibility in general, there's lots of resources out there. Mohawk is a really great program, and obviously I created it. I'm a huge advocate for it. But there's lots of other opportunities out there. There's lots of free workshops, lots of free webinars. In Hamilton, we have the A11Y HAM or Alleyham meetup group. It meets monthly and is a free meetup group where you can meet with other members of the disability and accessibility community to talk about inclusion and the importance of digital accessibility. It's right now it's completely virtual. Hopefully we'll be able to meet again in person one day, but even participating in a meetup group, there's meetup groups all over, our country and the US. And um, the ALITO has a camp coming up that's free at the end of May, with lots of great speakers. So I just encourage people to take a moment and seek out some resources to learn about how they can make their content accessible. It's oftentimes just little things they need to do, and um, that would make a huge impact on a lot of people.
Um, Great message, Jennifer. So thank you for coming on the show and sharing it with us, Jennifer Jahnke. Thank you so much. And can you give out your contact information one more time?
Yeah, you can reach me at jennifer.jahnke, JAHNKE, at mohawkcollege.ca, or you can find more about the program on mohawkcollege.ca/390.
Uh, Jennifer Jahnke, thank you so much for joining us on Possibilities today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Danny. I appreciate you asking again. I'm so glad I got to be here today.
Yeah, thank you, and we will be right back after that. Wasn't that a great conversation with Jennifer Jahnke? Um, so much um, useful information on there. So if you have any questions, you can email her at Jennifer Jahnke at Mohawk College. And if you have any questions about the accessible media program, you can find more information about her program at, at, at Mohawk college.ca/590. So, and if you want to get in contact with me, you can reach out to me at possibilitiesshow at gmail.com, and I will be happy to hear any feedback from you or ideas from the show or anything like that. So thank you very much for being here, and until next time, keep a disability, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. This episode of Possibilities is dedicated to Angela Armstrong, a fan of Possibilities. All of us at Possibilities want to wish and grow well as she goes through her health challenges. We hope you recover fast and hope that Possibilities gives you something to look forward to when you're having a bad day. Thank you so much for watching, and we really appreciate your support. Stay well and stay safe.